So hello everyone, I'm Nizar Romdan from Virtual Arts. Today I'll be talking to you about our journey to augmented reality, so our experience so far. As you might have guessed from the picture, we're a startup based in Cambridge, and the clicker didn't work. Okay. No? So yeah, we're based in Cambridge. For those who know Cambridge, that's the Cam River. And just to have a cool picture, we all took VR headsets and we went in the river punting and took the photo. Yes, so we started a bit more than a year ago. We do VR, AR, and MR, and we are composed of two core teams. One that comes from ARM, for those who know ARM, the processor company based in Cambridge. More the programmers come from ARM. And the second core team comes from Sony Gorilla Cambridge, after Sony, unfortunately for them, decided to shut down the studio, but maybe fortunately for us, because it provided us with really excellent developers, famous for having worked on Riggs, which was a launch title for PlayStation VR, but before that on games like Killzone Mercenary on the PS Vita, Little Big Planet on PSP, and so on. The team that comes from ARM brings all the experience around engines, tools, and advanced demos. So that's who we are. We make, as I said, VR, AR, and MR, but we do both content, games, experiences, and animations, more on the interactive entertainment front. But we develop also our own technology. So we develop our own engine and tools for VR, AR, and MR development. And we're writing that from scratch, so no legacy. We're developing that also for the latest mobile spec and hardware. What brought us to VR, I guess, is the same as everyone here. If you're in VR and AR, it's predicted to be the next big thing. The slide is from Gigi Capital. If you consider PC, internet, and mobile being the next big thing when they emerge, then VR, AR, and MR is expected to be that. The question is it too early to be in this space? If you look at the typical hype curve for any technology, the worst thing is that you hit the landscape when it is going through the throw of disillusionment. It seems AR is now getting out of that into really the slope of enlightenment. So for it to happen, VR seems to have taken already that position. So we think it's a good time to be in AR. Still maybe a little bit early, but it's taken off hopefully. Is AR new? Actually, it's not. So AR started a long time ago. 68 is when the first experiment started. But probably in 1990 was a defining moment when a researcher in Boeing defined the term augmented reality. And for quite some time, all through that decade, most of the usage was actually military, also in space exploration, NASA, and so on. In 98, the first experiments with AR started in entertainment. It wasn't until the year 2000 when AR Toolkit was released until AR started really becoming a bit more popular with developers. And then at the end of that decade, 2009, a key turning point as well, when browsers supported AR and also mobile devices, which have become almost synonymous to AR. When we were at ARM, we started working on AR back then, and in 2012 we started doing demos, showcasing what AR could do. And after that, I guess you know what has been happening with Google launching the Google Glass, then Microsoft, the HoloLens, and more recently, ARKit. So the things we have been doing with AR, we did a game demo. Can I have the sound, please? Called Magic Mirrors, and this was on the Galaxy S2. But back then we had to use markers, and we used an engine developed by us. It was a simple game. You simply use the markers to guide a laser from the emitter to the target, using prisms and mirrors to guide that. And we developed that mainly as a demo to showcase what mobile phones are capable of, and also as an eye-opener to game developers what they could be doing. Because when we were at ARM, we were mainly doing developer relations for ARM. But as you can see, it relied on having the markers. So if you don't have them or if you lose them, then the whole experience basically is dead. So we realized that there was a problem for AR to take off and that we needed markerless AR. So without these tags, you need to be able to do AR. So what brought AR back? I mean, there was a wave that AR was going to happen in 2012, but actually it didn't. What brought back simply big players like Apple and Google putting their weight behind it. Apple launched an AR kit, and later the iPhone X, and then Google following with AR Core, which is still currently in preview, but actually works if you have the Pixel or the Galaxy S8. The other thing that we believe brought AR back is the massive evolution or increase in performance of hardware, or mobile phones more importantly. If you look back when the first iPhone was released, it had only one CPU core and one GPU core. And it was able, of course, to run games, etc. But when you went into AR mode, it was way underpowered to do any significant algorithm for detection or tracking of objects in AR. Even though we experimented with the Galaxy S2, Galaxy S3 back in 2012, it was obvious that the performance of hardware in mobile was quite behind. Now you have phones like the Galaxy S8 with 8 CPU cores and 20 GPU cores. So you have now an amazing compute power in these devices that allowed AR to be back, and why now AR and MR are going probably to be possible, because these devices now have capabilities that match consoles or getting close to PC. And we can only see that trend going even further with hardware manufacturers talking about 32 CPU cores, 64 GPU cores in a mobile phone. So from our perspective, we focus on AR devices, and we categorize them in two categories: what we call standard camera-based devices. That's all the mobile phones and the tablets probably you have today. They're based on a very simple camera, RGB or 2D camera. But the important category is going to be the depth camera-based devices, like the iPhone X, which have a depth sensor, which has a depth sensor that allows much better detection and tracking in AR mode. And we believe later mixed reality headsets probably will take over and will define really what AR is going to look like. We started experimenting with that. We have the Acer-based Windows mixed reality device, but we're focusing currently mainly on phones and tablets with AR kit and AR Core. That gives us access to a quite large number of devices and users, more importantly on iOS, but also with AR Core, which already is on 100 million devices, the Pixel, the S8 category of devices, altogether nearly 800 million accessible devices in 2018. So when we started working on VR, that seemed quite restricted market, but AR hopefully is a much bigger market. So what we did, we had an IP in development called Hexi, was a VR IP. We launched a preview on Gear VR. We took elements of that game, and we started experimenting basically in VR, in AR. So this is a bit what we did. We just took the character, and we started playing with what can we position, what can we detect, and what can we do basically in AR. So that's the Pixel phone with AR Core. And you can simply detect a horizontal surface and position the character and track it quite well. And we tried to push the boundary by seeing how many instances of the character Hexi can we position. And we were quite impressed by seeing actually it is remarkably doing well. So performance is okay-ish. We can track them all. So what we learned is that we can do AR with our markers. So great news. AR Kit and AR Core have more or less comparable features, but we noticed that the AR Kit is way more stable. So if you're developing now on AR, it's probably AR Kit the way to start. We believe AR Core, however, will catch up. But in terms of features, what can you detect? It's mainly detecting horizontal surfaces and being able to place your objects. You can do more or less vertical surfaces, but it's not really accurate. And the App Store is definitely the store that is better positioned or structured to host your content. It has dedicated pages for games and apps in AR. So with all that in mind, we started working on our first proper AR game called Lightstream Racer, and it's releasing soon on the App Store. And here's a preview. So it's a racing game, kind of futuristic, gravity-defying game. And you position a track. So we went with a mode where you're inside the track, kind of 360 mode, and a mode where you're like tabletop, so you see all the track, and you race on a virtual track that appears in the environment. So that was the 360 mode, and this is the tabletop mode, where you position all the track and you can see the whole track in front of you, so it requires less looking around, less immersive, maybe better suited for certain environments. So what did we learn from that first game? First one is actually, we think it's better to do small games, small relatively, to learn and iterate quickly, because by the time we were developing Lightstream Racer, by the end, we realized that the assumptions we made, actually, we could have done things differently. So if we were going to develop a big game, that we would have to do a lot of restarts. We're going premium for now, because if you're doing a small game, you want to release quickly and go back again. Probably you can't do a full free-to-play game, even though you're launching on mobile, on a store like the App Store. We decided to leverage the stable features in AR and AR Kit, like detecting the horizontal surfaces, to place the track and do the tracking, but not experiment with surfaces that not with features that are not well supported. We thought that if you immerse the player really in AR, you can have the most impressive kind of mode, which is why we think the 360 mode is the better one. But we allow also going to the tabletop mode, which is more minimalistic for limited experience. It could be because you're in an environment that does not allow that. If you want people to play AR on the tube, for example, if you're going for 360, that would be probably hard. Or maybe people will have preference towards just that mode rather than the full immersive experience. Other things we learned that since we were doing VR games, motion sickness was quite a big problem in VR. You almost don't have that problem in AR unless you go for that immersive 360 mode, and people will be constantly turning around. For lengthy playing session times, you could start having that problem. Some testers were saying, actually, I'm getting dizzy from spinning around. So much less than VR, but depending on what you do, you could face that problem as well. The height of camera was also a problem, much less than VR. Ideally, we want AR kit and AR core to handle that. They detect exactly the altitude and handle that for us. But sometimes it does position the track quite high or quite low, and then the experience becomes a little bit uncomfortable, so you have to kill the game and start again. So we will allow adjusting the height to fix or go around that issue. We wanted to experiment with object and collision detection, but there's almost none of that currently in AR Kit and AR Core. Hopefully in the future we could do that, so we can start maybe positioning virtual objects behind real objects or vice versa. But for now it's mainly horizontal surfaces detection and tracking. The other thing we noticed is that we don't have to be in AR all the time. So we're going to combine a mix where you're in normal mode, then you go to AR when it makes sense for the gameplay to go to AR. The other thing that, of course, we noticed, and we expected that once you play quite a lot in AR mode, then power consumption hits the roof. And either you, as a player, decide not to play a lot, or something needs to be done. From my perspective, since we develop our own engine, there was also another reason why we had to do that, and we're currently doing a lot of optimization to minimize power consumption so that we can allow longer play-in sessions in AR. So that's it for my talk today.